on the cloud. Okay then, and welcome everyone to our event tonight. In this talk, we're going to hear from 3 female blockchain game changers as they share firsthand their insights fresh from the industry. And you're going to get to learn to see the role of blockchain education from the eyes of the mindful strategist, the crypto catalyst, and the inclusive educator. But before I introduce my panel that we have today, I'm Bridget Greenwood. I'm the founder of The Bigger Pie. And The Bigger Pie is designed as a network and community to be able to support the amazing women who are already pioneering in the space, to be able to help them to connect to each other, learn from each other, to be able to have role models, to give visibility to these incredible experts on panels, at events. I'm looking to be able to work and get media training and to be able to attract more women into the space. So we have with us today, we have Yip. She's a co-founder at Unit Ventures. She researches the question how to do good and do well at the same time. She's a certified mindfulness trainer, an executive coach, VC and founders advisor, and author of a leadership book called Beautiful Brains Change Tomorrow Today. Yip has worked for and in government agencies, not-for-profit organizations, investment firms, management consultants, startups, and large corporations, including family businesses. And she's got more than 15 years of experience in designing and facilitating peer-to-peer learning journeys and co-founded the incredible DLT Talents at Frankfurt School of Blockchain Center. Previously, she's been a project lead in McKinsey and holds an MBA from INSEAD, and her area of expertise is in strategic partnership building and in complex ecosystems. Welcome, Yip. We also have with us this evening, Eleanor Blanc. She's a cryptocurrency industry. She says the cryptocurrency industry is made of visionaries and ruthless moneymakers, and it's the perfect mix for a monetary revolution. And Eleanor is all in. She's thrilled to be part of an ongoing social and financial experiment and is passionate about peer-to-peer cash, voluntarism, and economic freedom. With a background in political science and public management, she could only fall in love with cryptocurrency's disruptive narrative of financial and economic freedom. Active with the crypto community in Amsterdam, she began working in the wallet mining industry at BTC.com. And she's founded Crypto Canal in 2019 to offer educational, marketing, and business development services. She's worked with industry leaders such as Luno, OKX, Shapeshift, Bitcoin.com, Cyber Capital, Edge Wallet, and Hub Security. And from across the pond, we have with us Samantha Mullett. She's a writer, blockchain consultant, and founder of The Blockhead. Blockhead is a beginner-friendly resource for all things crypto. It was created to break through the tech jargon and help people learn about cryptocurrencies in an easy and entertaining way. Samantha has worked in technology for over 8 years and published material for startups, tech giants, nonprofits, and government agencies. And she became involved in blockchain in 2016, where she saw the need for an educational resource that lowered the barrier of entry for everyone, regardless of industry or educational background. Outside of the Blockhead, Samantha has created blockchain educational courses for Afro Valley, a free educational program running in Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya to spur in financial inclusion. She's also an active member of the She 256, a nonprofit dedicated to increasing diversity within the blockchain industry. And her areas of expertise include cryptocurrency, blockchain analysis, criminal investigations, and cryptocurrency hacks. So before we launch into my first question that I have with our panel, I'm actually going to ask, can you each take it in turns to just tell us a little bit more about what you know about blockchain and crypto, where you're dialing in from, what's your main motivation for attending today, and say in the chat, what's your professional background? But let's start the conversation and we'll leave that up just for a few moments. Yip. Tell us about your journey into the crypto and blockchain space and what keeps you excited in it.
Okay, sure. So I joined after I went to the World Economic Forum and I was trying to understand, how can we shift from shareholder capitalism to, like at World Economic Forum, one would say stakeholder capitalism. I've been a big advocate of social entrepreneurship since my early days in university. I worked with Professor Yunus to research and understand better how, we can alleviate or lift certain parts of population out of poverty using mechanisms of capitalism. And then I looked into sustainability and I realized, there needs to be some different mechanism of how to make the shift. And I've been looking for years to understand better in the startup space, in the governmental space, in the consulting and corporate space, to look for ways to have better coordination of efforts in markets, for example. And then I was at World Economic Forum and I heard these leaders from the blockchain space sharing about the technology and the economic incentives, the mechanisms behind it. I was just like, wow, this is really cool, because I've heard so many CEOs and corporations wanting to, bring sustainability, but having really no clue about how to make that happen. And then I saw these people who kind of have the capital and the technology and the intention to do it. I was like, this is where I want to be. So what is really fascinating for me is we are at the time of technology where we can actually use technology for good and helping solve some problems that we haven't been able to solve as a global population before.
And Sam, do you want to tell us what attracted you into the space and what keeps you excited?
Sure. So a couple of years ago, I was in San Francisco just working in tech, and I had heard about blockchain and Bitcoin, but I think I saw an increasing use case. I noticed that the majority of the people in the US felt a little distant from the financial sector. And, money supply continued to increase, the threat of inflation got bigger. And so all of a sudden, blockchain and Bitcoin became this really interesting alternative system. But I think what really hooked me was when I started going to meetups and lectures. I just kind of knew in my gut, like, this is going to be the future and this is going to be massive. And I think at that time, I also noticed that most people in the room looked the same. Most people were in tech, using the same language. And so I really wanted to make an educational resource that kind of spanned other backgrounds. I think I saw in order for blockchain and crypto to reach mass adoption, we would have to lower the barrier to entry. So that's what hooked me and brought me in. And I think over time, I just saw that use case grow, and I saw how blockchain can really be applied to so many different systems.
Absolutely. I'm always hugely impressed by the vision that people have had throughout the years, especially when there was really little to believe in apart from what you could see. So it's always fascinating hearing people's stories and understanding how they got into it and what they see. Eleanor, I know that you're very passionate about this. Please share your story.
Just a little bit. No, I fell in love, like my bio says, and like a bit like Sam, like through the meetup space. I went by accident to a meetup in Amsterdam and just was thrown into this world where people were telling me things and I didn't understand anything. I didn't come from the tech background. I came from a political public management background. I did at that point wanted to have an impact. Whatever I would do in my work, I wanted to make a change. That's how I was driven. And I realized that in cryptocurrencies, definitely there's so much to do. And I was just attracted by the energy and just the tech, and realizing that maybe before diving into water policies, which was actually my first love, that the problem, the economical problem, is actually the root of everything. And I thought that if I would actually start by empowering people financially, then water, electricity, and those other problems actually could maybe resolve themselves in a different way. Especially when I understood the power of having money outside of the state. That's really what just made me go all in. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. So yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And I'm really honored to be here on this panel with Sam, with you. So just thank you for having all of us here.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Now, one of the things that you say is buying a coin is a political statement. So do you want to share more about that? And I think you can use Lebanon as a perfect example of what's happening right now, as why that might be the case.
Yeah, it's kind of stuck with me. It's something that I started saying in the early days when it stuck. It has different meaning all the time. But for me, I think right now it has two meanings. One, when you're buying a cryptocurrency and using cryptocurrency, that in itself is a political statement, because you're basically using money that is not backed by legal tender. So it's not backed by the state. So that's already in itself is a statement. And then the second interpretation of that quote basically is there's so many different cryptocurrencies out there. They all have a different story, a different value proposition, different token economics, different consensus algorithm. And based on your portfolio, based on what you're buying, it's a statement in itself because you're expressing yourself through money. So whatever you're buying, whatever you're using will tell something about you as a user and can itself be understood as a political statement. So I'm not going to start listing cryptocurrencies here, but there are personas attached to different cryptocurrencies and different value system, I think. So that's why I like to say that.
Yes. And I think that's an important point that you're saying, that every time you buy something, every time you spend something, depending on what you spend, what currency you're using and what you're buying does say something about you, which is why I think that there is also the interest in privacy coins. I tend to weave privacy at some point into a conversation because for me at the moment, too many people say I'm not doing anything wrong. Why am I worried about privacy? But I think it's a much, much bigger subject matter than that. So yes, do you want to share a little bit about, I know that you're very passionate about what's happening in Lebanon and how cryptocurrencies might be able to alleviate the issues there?
Of course. I was very lucky in 2014 to be an exchange student in Lebanon. I had another phase in my life where I was very passionate about Middle East, and I thought that I would work there and I would solve conflicts, and that's what I was learning Arabic and had this whole phase. By living in Lebanon, I also realized the scarcity of water and scarcity of electricity. And right now, it's not the same monetary system that I was in 2014. And for a long time, their money was pegged to the US dollar. Since October 2019, the peg has been dropped, and it's been just a constant struggle for people in Lebanon currently to be able to gain access to their money. The value of their own currency, the Lebanese pound, has dropped more than 90% at this point. So imagine having a bank account and you've lost 90% of your value over like a year and a half or so. You don't have access to your dollars account anymore either. There's a lot of capital control. When the blast happened, sadly, last summer, it was really hard to support people on the ground. We couldn't donate any fiat. It was really hard for the fiat to actually reach them and for people to be able to then withdraw it, etc. So I've been basically teaching people in Lebanon about cryptocurrencies and about international remittances. So usually when I do a class, I always end the class by giving a little bit of cryptocurrency to just show people how easy it is actually to receive funds from abroad with bypassing the banking system, basically, and also telling them to maybe onboard local merchants for them to be able to stay and create that circular economy with cryptocurrency. So Lebanon has sadly become a prime example of when a state and the monetary system that's behind it fails and fails at people. And we're talking about hyperinflation and famine and really deep financial distraught over there. So I'm really passionate about helping Lebanon.
Yes, absolutely. And Yip, you're also passionate about looking at stakeholder value and bringing that in. What's needed for us to facilitate the shift to stakeholder capitalism, at least?
Mm-hmm. So that's a form of capitalism in which the stakeholders contribute to creating value. What I actually love much about the crypto space is when you look at it from a bird's eye view, it's kind of the shift from an internet that was basically the internet of information to the internet that is the internet of communication, where we use technology to connect with all people from all across the world. Me to my family in Vietnam, for example, at zero cost. That was not possible when I grew up as a child talking to my relatives in Vietnam, for example. Now we have the opportunity to use the internet as an internet of value. I can actually send money to relatives in Vietnam almost instantly at super low cost. It's actually not even money which is so revolutionary, but it's a way of measuring value because it goes beyond money. And that's actually the opportunity for us as a global society to define what do we find valuable? What things do we actually attach a value to? And when we look at economic models, what we can do is optimize for contribution. Contribution can be much more than profits. So just as simple things, we can optimize for the bottom line. What is the bottom line when we go beyond profits? And I think this technology, like tokenization of things or thinking about value in a different way, enables us to attach a value to things that have not been really possible to attach value to. So we make intangible things tangible, and we give them a space in our economic models to be seen and then to transfer. So this is actually the Internet of Value, the way I see it. And so when we think of cryptocurrency systems, because we have better ways to make microtransactions across the globe more cost efficient, we now have a tool to help people contribute even in very, very little ways and assign value to them. And so we can support a lot of people in ways that would not have made sense from an economic point of view because it would have been too costly. It's a bit similar to how basically Mohammed Yunus brought, for example, banking to the poor by reinventing lending. He invented micro lending and had some systems support that. And all of a sudden it became profitable for banks to do that because he had systems in place where default of loan repayments would reduce. So these kinds of things we can currently figure out with all the different systems in the markets right now. Everything is very new. So there will need to be a lot of testing before it can have mass adoption, but we are already seeing so much money flowing into the market. And it's our time actually to take action and to go from consumer mode into not only creator mode, but actually to contributor mode. So what makes me really, really passionate about it is we can create a contributor society and we can actually agree on a global world on how to measure contribution in a new way and in micro segments. So not like we don't need to rely on one size fits all solutions, but we can have different solutions for different segments and different needs.
It's really fascinating. So does that help things like the care economy? So there are many things. I mean, the pandemic has really shown that just because you're highly paid doesn't mean to say that you're bringing all this value into the world. When we've had major sports people can be some of the highest paid people in the world, but when the pandemic came, yes, they've got sports back up and running, but it was the people who were driving the buses, it's the people who were serving us in the shops, etc., that were really showing up with their value. Do you think this type of technology and this shift in thinking and how we can value things will be able to sort of have an impact on how people are rewarded for what they do in a different way?
Yes, it's up for us to design how much value we want to attach to certain things, right? If it doesn't take a lot of effort and maybe a lot of cost to serve, like to attach micro values to little acts of service, for example, then why should I not do it? It should be effortless, convenient. Ultimately, we are all human beings, right? And most of us, including myself, like to have comfort. I actually can feel with myself that when something is very cumbersome, there's less of a probability that I will do it.
Yes.
So yes, we can use this technology and include like with a wise UX design to make sending, for example, a tip or something to micro acts an easy thing to do, a default thing to do without needing to go the extra mile and always relying on that I will do the extra mile. That won't help with like changing the system.
That's very true indeed. So we've understood what's brought you into the sector, all three of you, and we've heard a little bit about what you're really passionate about and how you see that we can change things today and what we could be able to change things in the future. I'm just going to go through the poll results now. I'm going to share them with us because we did ask you. So thank you very much for those of you who've let us know. And hello to everyone who's speaking in the chat as well. How much blockchain or crypto expertise have you got? So 8%, this is their first encounter. You're welcome. We're great to have you here and hopefully it won't be the last. 36% of you follow the news. 24% of you own some crypto and the third of you have been in the space for a number of years. We're dialing in from half of us are from Europe, US, Latin America is 24% and the same for Middle East, Africa and Asia. So it's great to be able to have a global reach. And the main motivation for attending today is the third of it is learning about blockchain, supporting the bigger pie and having a different perspective. It's equal across the results there. So thank you very much, everyone, for that.